Hello and welcome to Morgan Latif Presents Spotlight Sessions. I'm your host, Ollie Pearn, and today I had the absolute privilege of speaking with Amy Peterson. Amy is the Vice President of Human Resources for Huhtamaki for North America. And Amy, sorry again to reference this, has been part of the organization for a quarter of a century. So she is someone that's evolved greatly within the business, very much part of the furniture and leading the way from the HR perspective. In this episode, we cover topics ranging from the importance of strategic succession planning and the impact that that can leave on a business, either positive or negative, if done or not done. All the way through to the policies that she's helped implement along the way through her 25-year tenure, and also covering topics around AI and how that's also impacting businesses from a HR perspective and giving an insight to how Huhtamaki are operating within this field. So without further ado, let's get into things. And I know that you will find a lot of value and pearls of wisdom that Amy shares in this episode. So, Amy, thank you so much for joining me today on the next episode of the podcast and Spotlight Sessions for Morgan Latif. Really appreciate it. Perhaps to start with, some of the audience that would be watching might not necessarily know who you are or know much about you. So, leave the floor with you to begin with to give a bit of an intro.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you a little bit more. A little bit about me. Amy Peterson. I lead HR for Huhtamaki North America. I'm based in Kansas City area where our headquarters for North America are. I was born and raised in Illinois, and but I've lived in Kansas City now for about 25 years. I have a master's degree in HR and have now been in the field for 30 plus years, which is kind of scary and to say sometimes. um, but my entire career has been in manufacturing, always in packaging actually as well. So I just like to say I was born and raised in operations, and have a great love for the manufacturing floor and our employees who do the real hard work every day.
Amazing. So one question I'm perhaps then keen to ask straight off the back, right? When Amy Peterson graduated from university, did you have any thoughts whatsoever that you would spend over a quarter of a century, sorry to reference that, working in the packaging industry? How did you fall into the sector?
Yeah, so it was really my first job right out of college. I went to school at the University of Illinois, and Solo Cup Company had a part of their corporate office in a manufacturing plant there in Urbana, Illinois. So I took my first job as an HR assistant in packaging, spent about 7 years with them. And when I was an HR manager for them, we were closing the site that I was working at, and we held a job fair for our employees. Huhtamaki came to the job fair and they were actually looking for an HR manager. So I transitioned from Solo to Huhtamaki, and here I am still 25 years later. And it's funny when you're in packaging, or I'm sure this is true of just about any career or field you're in. Um, I have a bad habit of everywhere I go, I look at the bottom of my cup. Um,
You and me both.
to see is it one of ours that we made, or even worse yet, sometimes I'll see an interesting product on the shelf and I will pick it up and buy it, or I'll take a picture of it and
Mm,
take it back to my R&D team to say, hey, we need to be doing something like this, or should we be doing something like this? So yeah,
mm,
it's kind of a um you get a little bit of a disease, right? You always
mm.
doing this.
Well, you and me both, right? I've spent several years working in packaging industry, but from a search perspective, right, recruitment perspective, and where I work and have worked across the full value chain, I'm not just doing it with cups, Amy. I'm doing it with everything that requires packaging, right? So when
Right.
I'm in supermarkets and with my friends or family, they kind of leave me to it, and I'm sort of spotting. And then when I see brands, names, if I see Huhtamaki on something, I'm like, I know these guys, I work with these guys, and
Right.
they're just sort of like, okay, yeah, you carry on doing that. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because I think if you're
Right.
not in the packaging world, you don't really pay too much attention to it, and you're probably a bit naive in actually really realizing the magnitude and acknowledging the magnitude of the industry. So yeah, I can relate somewhat.
Agreed. It's just not something people think about. But I like to tell people that if you've eaten in a fast food restaurant, you
Hmm.
have likely touched one of our products over the years. So try to make it real
Absolutely.
for them, right? So that they understand the scope and the depth of everything that we do.
Absolutely. So you've been in the business for a long, long time. You're part of the furniture there, right? How's your positions evolved in that time? Because you're now sitting as Vice President of Human Resources for North America, right? So you didn't start there. It was a long journey. But yeah, just talk us through a little bit about that journey and that evolvement of the role.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I came in as an HR manager in the manufacturing operation in DeSoto. I spent time, several years there as both HR and safety, so I have a pretty strong safety background as well. And from there, it really just grew, kind of natural progression as Huhtamaki grew. We grew a lot
Mhm.
over those years with some acquisitions and organic growth. And so then I stepped up into leading and overseeing HR for 8 different facilities across the country, focused on paperboard and folding cartons specifically. Then from there, I transitioned into a global role and did some project work globally for a bit. And then we actually didn't have a VP of HR for a number of years. And so when our current president came on board, I was then promoted into the VP of HR, where I've been now for a little over 3 years. So it's a pretty natural progression as far as from my perspective, and just increasing responsibility and scope over the years within HR.
Nice. And I mean, with that, you've obviously clearly been instrumental in the development of a number of the policies related to HR and talent development. What does that look like for you? I mean, if you could summarize that in terms of your input.
Sure, sure. I actually, policy development and sort of establishment is really kind of an area that I enjoy and really love. And so I've spent quite a bit of time in that over the years, especially when I was overseeing a number of sites. I believe very strongly in employees having a consistent experience, no matter which location they're in at Huhtamaki. So it's been always been important for me to develop policies and procedures that were consistent across the organization. And that was challenging at times because we are a melting pot of acquisitions.
Mhm.
So we had, there were a lot of different individual policies and handbooks and cultures with across our locations. So it took some time, but I really established why it was important for me and for our more so for our employees to have that consistent experience. Um, and so, and that required me to do some get some buy-in from our HR managers and plant
Mhm.
management staff to develop those. But it's really scoped, it's across all areas, whether it's just general handbooks, whether it's ways of working, whether it's recruitment policies, safety guidelines, code of conduct. I mean, it's just been a variety of different topics and across the spectrum of HR.
Okay. Okay. And I guess what comes with a role such as yours is quite somewhat of a strategic lens that you must look through, right? When we're talking about things like succession planning, and the impact that that can have on the business if it does or doesn't happen, right?
Yes.
What for you are the biggest challenges when it comes to looking at things like strategic succession planning?
Yeah, I think first of all, getting buy-in from all of the managers in the organization. And I would say that that's something that we have managed to improve quite a bit over the years at Huhtamaki,
Mhm.
because it's very important to any organization and it should be taken seriously. And I don't think everyone always stops to think about that, right? That, oh,
Mm.
we'll tackle that when it comes, or
Mm.
we'll
Yeah.
deal with that when it happens and cross that bridge. But so at Huhtamaki specifically, it's been important because we have so many employees that have 20 plus years of employment with us and
Yeah.
tenure. They are like a walking encyclopedia within their own area of expertise.
Are you
So we have
speaking
to.
about yourself here?
No, oh, no, I'm not. No, I won't do that. But but I think that's very important that we have to make those succession plans, and more importantly, we have to create the development plans that go along with those succession plans to really set people up for success and to be the next leader in the organization, to really learn the depth of of all those next positions that they might be interested in. And we've had a lot of good luck with that, and it's really been a focus area of ours over the last few years. We're actually in succession planning mode right now as part of our annual processes.
Okay.
And we'll follow that up with with our development plans that we create this summer for each employee.
Okay. So aside from generating that kind of buy-in with other stakeholders, how do you in your role, because you're, correct me if I'm wrong, leading those initiatives, right? How do you make sure that they do go to plan and you have that kind of roadmap secure in place? Because in a role like yours, you've got so many different hats you need to wear, and different priorities change. But that is, as you mentioned, such a critical part for the business, because unfortunately, so many companies do think more along the lines of, yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And then, 5 years have gone by. Hi, we're at that bridge now, and we've got no plan to get over it, right?
Right.
So
I think it's a couple of things, right? So for us, it's really making the time and having the intentional conversations. So as a leadership team, we have succession planning conversations on a regular basis.
okay.
We're now focusing on it quarterly. And so we'll pick a different function, and each quarter we'll look at our talent matrix and talk about what's happening with individuals. Are there people who need a move to help them get to the next role or level? Are there people who need additional training, right? Again, that development plan piece. And so we've really worked on that over the last few years, where we spend a lot of time, and I sit down, my HR manager sits down with every sort of line manager or department manager. And then that rolls up, and I sit down with the leadership team, and we look at every functional area, and then we look at the organization as a whole, to help make those, have those conversations and make those next steps. I think the other thing, Ollie, that we have done that's been very key to our succession planning as a whole is we developed a career program about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And that has been instrumental in developing our talent and building up the succession plan across the organization. It started rather focused on our commercial side of our business, but it has since expanded to include basically every function, finance, operations, R&D, HR, IT. So we include every aspect of the business in bringing in a new class of early in their career recent college graduates every summer, and rotating them through the business in different roles. It's been so successful that we're now expanding that to a global program with our global colleagues.
Wow. So it started in North America as a pilot, and now it's expanding globally.
Yeah, it wasn't really a pilot per se, but it was something that our leadership team developed about 15 years ago. And it has been so successful, and the company sees the benefits of it. And it's actually something we highlight to our board of directors and our global executive team anytime they are here visiting. And so, yeah, it's now become a best practice, and we're going to help expand it across the globe.
Wow, that's really cool. What do you say that it's been a success? How do you define success for something like that? Is it just longevity, or is it specific results that those people that started from the kind of the grad scheme you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things and more. I think that it's, we like to say that we bring in these early career folks, and we put them into real jobs very early in their career. And some people, might be hesitant and say, oh, are they really ready for that challenge? Are they really, can they really do that job? And, there's been a couple of times when it's not worked out, but the majority of time it's been an overwhelming success. And these employees rise to the challenge, and they prove that they're ready, and they're willing to develop and take on those challenges. So it's really exciting to watch them, because we've seen several of them now, are in heads of or director roles. Really the intention is to be the next vice president in the company, or even have the president role. So
Yeah.
it's it's very exciting, and it's rewarding to watch these younger folks succeed in their career.
Mm. Yeah, and that's interesting. Do you as a HR leader, do you feel that there is a struggle to kind of bring on board the Gen Zs that we speak about, right? Do you think there's a struggle because there are so many different lucrative industries out there now, some of which never existed a decade or two ago, right? You look at these influencers now that's almost become its own industry, and the amount of money and success you can have from that and doors that can open is crazy. So using that as an example, do you think that because of areas such as that, it becomes a struggle to attract talent, young talent, into the world of packaging?
We've been fortunate, and we have not really struggled to continue to attract really good talent. And I think that there's a couple of reasons for that. One, because of the culture that exists within Huhtamaki. We work very hard at maintaining a strong, engaged culture. I would tell you that hands down, the reason I've been at Huhtamaki for 25 years is because of the people, which
Mm.
are the culture, right? And so, we work to hire interns and, sort of recruit them and wine and dine them, if you will, in the summer,
Yeah.
and then hopefully they get a taste of that culture, and they see
Mhm.
what it's like, and they want to come back and work full time with us. And they tell us repeatedly that they appreciate the culture, they like the culture, and that's what draws them in. And because they get to do the real work as an intern or as an early career individual in the program. So
Mm.
we really, but we also work hard at the recruitment process, right? So we have 5 or 6 universities that we have very close partnerships with, in kind of mainly surrounding the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
We spend time on campus. We go into the classrooms. We have events with them. We
Nice.
provide tours for the different finance and sales programs. So it's also very intentional, and we work hard at it. It's not just luck. And, we also make sure that they interview with a lot of different folks in the organization, and that a lot
Mm.
of our people get to meet them and make a fair assessment on both sides.
Mm. Okay, interesting. And there's clearly there, what you've spoken about, there's been a huge involvement and in many fields. And I think one other field that is evolving rapidly is of course like the use of AI, and this being such a big factor nowadays, rapidly embedding itself in so many different fields. And I guess what comes with that question would be what do you think the future looks like for HR, whether that be Hutamaki or just, period, right? When it comes to AI, do you think there is a place for it in HR?
Absolutely. And I view it as a tool to make our lives a bit easier, right? And
Mm.
working smarter, not harder.
Mm.
So we are currently piloting and using AI in a couple of different areas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, starting rather simple with Copilot,
Okay.
and we are diving deeper into Copilot and using that in our daily tasks, whether it's through just hopefully improving email functionality and
Yep.
efficiency, because
Okay.
we all drown in email, right, every day.
Mm.
Utilizing it in our meeting notes. So I don't know
Hmm.
about you, Ollie, but I spend a lot of time every day in meetings.
Mm.
And sometimes I can't make those meetings. So we use it to take notes. We use
Hmm.
it to provide a summary.
Okay.
And I'm finding that I can very quickly go back and, in 5-10 minutes, read a summary of the meeting and feel like I didn't totally miss out on something. So that's very
Mm.
helpful. Um, I I see us using it soon. If we can get it incorporated into our applicant tracking system, I'm hoping it will help take a lot of time out of recruiting and reviewing resumes and such, something you could probably appreciate too. Writing job descriptions, helping with
Yep.
that.
Mm.
So those are things specific to HR, and then we're also evaluating how we use it on the shop floor, and
Okay.
how we have it help us with training, with developing SOPs, with, just making us more efficient overall as an organization.
Right. And it's interesting you kind of looped in there the idea of it linking in with recruitment activity, right? Do you think that AI, because there's a lot of recruiters out there, I'm not one of them, that are worried that AI could effectively eradicate the need for recruiters longer down the line? But my argument on that is kind of how much can AI really do? Because we're in the people business. I think having that level of engagement with the candidates on a human level, right, is so vital, particularly for critical roles, but particularly for senior roles, but just in general. So I don't think that there is going to be a place that AI completely removes and extincts us as such consultants. But for you, do you think that there is a place for that? Do you think that the use of external parties and headhunters, etc., such as ourselves, would be minimized from AI?
I don't. I think that it will just, again, hopefully make your give you more time back in your day, right?
Mm,
To be able to screen through some of the resumes or be able to help you focus in on certain resumes. But you're spot on. I don't believe that it can replace the human interaction and the insights that you gain from having face to face. I mean, I can read a resume and the AI can read the resume and tell me if someone checks the boxes from the
mhm.
words on the page,
Yeah.
but they can't tell me if that person is going to be a good culture fit for us, or they are truly, do they truly know and can they back up
Mm.
everything that they may have listed on their resume? So I think your job is safe, Ollie.
I hope so. But that's the question, right? You say they can't assess culturally, but a human can. But do you, again, quite a question, do you think that as it evolves, that it could get to that point where AI becomes so advanced that you can somehow set it up with some sort of an assessment based on your experience of the business and your understanding of the culture, that it then can then plug that away somehow and then screen candidates in a way where it can actually define that and cross-reference the cultural fit as well?
I'm skeptical. I'm
Mm,
skeptical about that, probably because one, I'm a people person, right? And this is what I've been doing as you say, over a quarter of a century. Um, and I think that again, it's just really hard to take out the human side of it and to make it all about the AI. So I'm a little, the jury's out for me on that. And I think that, is it possible? Yes. But is it likely to happen, and how successful or effective will it truly be is still is yet to be determined for me.
mm. $1 million question, right? Let's see
Right,
how it all pans
right.
out. So another thing, that there's been a huge involvement of, and keen to hear your thoughts after so long, particularly in one business, is obviously diversity, right? And that being so much more of a important part of business in general. Um, as a diverse leader yourself within what's been a very largely male dominated industry for decades, how have you seen that evolve?
Yeah, great question. I guess I'd have to start by saying I've been very fortunate throughout my career to I've never experienced the sort of stereotypical male dominated
Okay.
culture. I think we've always been a little bit unique. So I've always been a full-time working mom, and
Mhm.
I've really been blessed to be able to put my family first
Okay.
while working, and feeling fully supported by my colleagues, most of which were men, at Huhtamaki. So and for several years, when I was talking about my career path, I was the only female on the operations leadership team.
Mm.
But it was never uncomfortable for me. It was never a problem. I always felt supported and valued, and I always felt like I had the same, equal voice at the table. So I
Amazing.
feel like, I've had a pretty maybe somewhat unique experience in that regard. I don't know. I mean, I have been at Huhtamaki so long. Um, But I also know that it has evolved at Huhtamaki because, over 10 years ago, it was a completely male leadership team here in North America. And that has now changed. And there not only has the leadership team grown in size, but we are also now 50% female with a female president. And I think, and that has been true of Huhtamaki globally. So we're about 25% females in our organization. But as you look across the different levels, it only increases in representation as you go up, so that even our board of directors is almost 50% female.
Wow. Okay.
So, so I've been able to see that really evolve over time within Huhtamaki, but then also externally. And I think it's been fabulous, right? I mean, if you look at someone like Mary Barra, who is the GM or the president of GM, the first female to lead one of the major auto manufacturers. That's huge. And I think she's helped pave the way for so many other female leaders across all the industries. And then there's things like organizations that I'm involved in, such as Women in Manufacturing or the Manufacturing Institute, right? That really highlight and promote women in manufacturing, and really, not to mention, also encourage male counterparts to support and champion females in the field. So I just, it's really been encouraging to see over the years how much it has changed and how much it's, for me, I don't even feel like it's an issue anymore, right? Like it's not something we talk about because it's just become the norm. We have female plant leaders, we have females, across all roles.
Yeah, it absolutely has become the norm, and there has been so much positive promotion of the importance of diversity and inclusion, right? I think something more topical is obviously very recently Trump and certain comments he's made related to kind of D&I topics. From you being a diverse leader in a large global business like Huhtamaki, and specifically for North America, do you see that impacting your team, the business, in any negative way, in any negative connotation, given what remarks have been made?
I really don't. I think that, whatever is happening with executive orders or, regulations, of course, we'll follow them where we're required to do so. For example, with affirmative action reporting, and, that's changing a bit for us. It's now we're only focusing on veterans and disabled topics rather than gender, race. So we'll follow those guidelines. But for the day-to-day, everything that's happening there will not impact what we do, or change, I should say, what we will do, right? We will still continue to work on making Huhtamaki an inclusive environment where everyone feels that they belong and feel supported and have a voice. And so for me, day to day, it just doesn't change. It just doesn't change what we do and how we approach diversity and inclusion at Huhtamaki.
Yeah, good. That's really, really nice to hear, because everyone's aware, right? There's a lot of noise going on at the moment. I think since a bit of backlash since some of those comments were made, and I've also seen firsthand with certain people I've spoken to within the industry saying that that's going to change things. So nice to hear that from your side that you don't foresee that at all, which is good.
If I could add just maybe something else there, is I think that what some other very large companies have done over the years is have like specific targets. So, they've been numbers focused. We want to have an X number of women, X
like
number
a quota,
of quota. And we've never done that at Huhtamaki, partially because we are global. We're so diverse. It's always been important to us to represent the areas where we work and live, without making it target focused. So again, focusing on the inclusion piece and being naturally diverse because of our global footprint.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. Good. So leading the way then, it would seem, in some ways, which is nice to see.
Yes.
going back a few paces, you mentioned there a reputable female leader that's inspired you somewhat. And are there any other leaders within the industry, male, female, right, that have really inspired you along the way from a leadership standpoint?
Oh gosh. I think mostly I tend to think towards the people that I've worked closely with, right? So
Yeah.
early on in my career, it was my very first manager who really built a foundation for me on the importance of compassion and servant leadership and just
Okay.
truly caring for our employees. I mean, that's obviously very important to me as an HR professional that I'm caring for our employees, and it's at the
Hmm.
heart of everything I do. So that
Hmm.
was really important. Um, and then I would tell you that really now what I think the people that are most influential to me are some of my peers. And I have a couple of female peers that I have the privilege of working with, and I really get a lot of inspiration out of them. Two of them are very different from each other. So I like to pick the best qualities, right, that I think that each of them have and try to emulate some of those
Yeah,
qualities in my work. And one of those is just really being so positive all the time and trying to find the positive in every situation, which just isn't always easy to do in today's world.
it is. Yeah, no, it is not, I should say. Okay, but
Yeah.
aside from that, though, I mean, I think we all generally have kind of people we idolize, people we sort of look up to, and that inspire us. Totally hear you. Colleagues, ex managers, etc., can be very much those people. But for example, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. Followed him for many, many years. Attended his seminars, and I'm curious: are there any celebrities, business leaders, motivational speakers that you've particularly drawn to over the years? I'm curious.
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, I haven't had any one person that I follow. I tend to kind of jump around and I'll follow a podcast here and there. But no, sorry, not any one particular person that I have followed over the years or that I probably draw the most inspiration from. So
No, no need to
maybe you can
apologize. Maybe I can. What? Sorry.
and maybe you can give me some tips. I mean, Tony Robbins obviously is a big one, right? I mean, I know, I'm familiar with Tony and a lot of great things, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I've definitely got a lot of good content I can share. It's a separate conversation, perhaps, Amy. But no,
Okay.
good though that you've got a lot of role models, peers, etc., previous, leaders that have inspired you along the way. And I think after spending 25 years in Huhtamaki, I think you're so embedded within that culture and the people there. It's natural that you're going to have people very close to home that are going to inspire you along the way. Um, in terms of the future, the future of the packaging industry, and maybe specifically to, Hutamaki's product segments, where do you foresee the biggest challenges?
Um, I think this one's pretty easy. Sustainability,
Okay, a
right?
nice
In
buzzword we
packaging.
hear a lot.
Yes, yes. But I would say that it's not just a buzzword for us.
Hmm.
We basically talk about sustainability every day at Huhtamaki because our goal is to be the first choice in
Okay.
sustainable packaging solutions for our customers. So we talk about it every day. Even in HR, I hear about it and talk about it quite often, which is a little bit surprising, right?
Mm.
Um, but we continually focus on how we can be the best partner to our customers, and we genuinely want to help them in their challenges. And there are a lot of challenges right now. I mean, if you look at the regulations that are changing, we've got, foam bans happening, we've got plastic, I know our European colleagues don't
Yep,
really care for
plastic
plastic
tax.
all that much, right? Well,
Mm.
we like to say in North America that we're material agnostic, and
Okay.
because we have plastic in our business here.
Yep.
So I think that's the biggest challenge that we have because it's not going away,
Mm.
and it continues to evolve and change every day. We have, a couple people who that's all they focus on a daily basis is tracking down regulations. So we need to be working on that, and we need to continue to find ways to stay ahead of the game and again, be that, strategic partner and resource for our customers so that we can continue to be the choice, the number one choice for our customers.
Okay, so that's what you see as being the biggest challenge moving forward, and
Uh,
influencing the customers in the right way to be that first choice, right? From a sustainability
yes,
angle. Yeah.
yes. And and then not specific to packaging. I think the biggest challenge we face is just the labor market and how tight the labor market is
Mm.
in manufacturing
Yeah.
specifically. Yep.
Why do you think it is so tight? What's that largely down to from your assessment?
I think that unfortunately over the years, just the culture has changed, and um, there's been a few reasons for that. Several years ago, it was everyone needs to graduate high school and go to college.
Mm.
And so there was this movement away, I think there was some sort of thought that, oh, we won't need all of these manufacturing jobs and manual labor jobs. There'll be automation and,
Yeah.
and things are trending a different way. And that's very much not the case. We need manufacturing every day, and we need the people to be in both the unskilled, semi-skilled, and skilled jobs.
Mhm.
So now we're clawing that back in the US and really focusing on more of the trades and getting young folks interested in trades and jobs such that, like the ones that Huhtamaki and many other manufacturers offer.
Okay. Appreciate the insights. Amy, thank you so much for all of the insights today. It's been really, really valuable. Maybe one way to finish, like I like to do so with my other podcast episodes, is always asking my guests, what's your sort of go-to most inspiring quote or kind of phrase as such? Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. And it kind of ties back to inspiring me to be a better leader at Huhtamaki and in my job, right? Being in HR and caring for others. And so I kind of always tend to lean towards a saying that's by Richard Branson, and it's train people well enough so that they can leave,
Mm.
but treat them well enough so they stay. And I think we do that at Huhtamaki, right? We've plenty of people stay for a really long time. So I'd like to think that we've been successful at that.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, it's a good one. I've heard that before, but yeah, really good that you live by that and can also, I guess, not just from an employee perspective, but I guess as a business for a customer perspective, that's also super important.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Amy, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it, and we will catch you next time.
All right. Thank you.